Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Javier in the Air. Today's opening music was Polka Fun. I was listening to it, trying to find a new piece of music to start out the opening of the show, and I came across this one and I just thought it was great. Kind of sets the mood for the whole episode. Okay, so I have a great Trashy hood that I will be working on, that I will be showing you first. Then we will have a Zen moment. Then we will have a bottom line, and then we will have a really out and about episode of Spirit Times, where Brother Rob and I made it out to a couple of breweries yesterday to sample their wares, so to speak. So let's get right to it and go and check out how much trash I picked up in the hood this week. Alright, so here we have week 10, day 2, and as you can see there's like a tube top. It was like a fish netting. It was a really weird thing at the top right. Underneath that was actually a t-shirt. Of course, the various bits of metal and plastic and rubber and receipts, and then actually a phone case. Just a case, wasn't a phone. And some candy wrappers. Really crazy. Here's the cigarette butts for the day. Can't seem to not find them. They're all over the place. Here's day 4. Which is just the 4th day of the week. About 30 latex gloves. I think they fell out of a box off of a paint truck or something like that. Couple of beverage containers. Of course, the prerequisite cigarette butts. Beverage containers and beer cans and plastic and metal and all the stuff we don't like to see on the road, but yet here they are. And a dish rag on the right side there. This was actually a lighter day today. This was day 5. There's a baseball cap, beverage containers, a lot of ketchup, some French fry container, plastic, metal, rubber tops, and then you'll see we also had, and I'll show it here in a second. I had to pull it off to be separate because there was just so much junk that I found that day. Here's the cigarette butts, yeah, part of a vape and stuff like that. Really crazy. This was yesterday. The Java walk turned out to be really interesting. Of course, the cigarette butts, and we also found a gas cap, a Listerine packet that was empty, beverage container, bits of wire, larger pieces of plastic, water bottle tops, and soda tops. And really interesting that I find more caps, the tops of the containers, than I do the actual beverage itself. I found that interesting anyway, at least. So there you go. Okay, so here we go. Looking at the camera again. Sorry about that. I keep losing focus to where the camera is. I like looking at myself. A little narcissistic much? I think so. If you noticed on the pictures from Trash Hood, or picking up trash in the hood, I should say, because it's not a trashy hood. It's actually a very nice neighborhood. There is really weird things, and I mentioned in the last bit, or either the next to last day or yesterday from walking, that there are a ton of bottle caps. Water bottle caps, soda, anything that has those little caps, the little caps that you get on there, and I don't find as many bottles. So I don't know about you, but like when I drink a beverage, I pull off I unscrew the cap, I drink, then I put the cap back on. It seems to me like what I'm getting is a lot more people just taking the tops off and then just tossing it out the window. I don't know how you guys drink, but do you kill it all at once then? You don't put the cap back on because you finished the bottle? And if you finish the bottle and you're rude enough to throw the cap out, why don't you throw the bottle? I mean, what's a little more trash, right? Anyway, I digress, as always. So that was our trash hood. So for those of you who may not know, first of all, for those of you that are new to the show, welcome. Thank you for watching Javier in the Air. Um, and for those of you who have been here before, you know that I've been picking up trash now for about 10 weeks. I think I've been showing it for about 8 weeks here. I also post on nextdoor.com for the neighborhood. And I have a couple of rules that I'll bring up again just for people's interest, because I get a lot of questions about how I decide where to go and how to protect myself from the trash to make sure I don't pick up anything crazy. Okay, so I have a grabber, which is fantastic. I got it like the third week I started doing this. I have a grabber. I have a grocery bag that now designated for just trash. Never gets used for groceries. Never get used for anything else ever again. And I will use that until it falls apart. It's a sturdy plastic, so it should be okay. And I'm not putting anything hot or anything in there, so it's not tearing the bag. It's doing a great job. So the rule really is, I try to stay away from medical waste, especially if I know that it's been used. So a lot of times, and what I mean by medical waste as far as my neighborhood goes, so I'm not finding syringes and scalpels and needles like in a pile in places. I'm talking normally about like used masks where you can tell they're dirty, um, gloves and stuff like that. Now the gloves I found this week really looked like they had just popped out of a box, so they were kind of clumped together. Some of them had fallen apart from the wind, and they still had wrinkles on them like they had never been used before. So that's important to me, to be safe on that. And then so anything wet, and wet I know is a weird terminology to use when you're picking up trash, but I think a lot of people will know what I'm talking about. Um, I don't pick up food because I figure that's going to break down through natural processes, so I don't worry about that. I'll pick up the containers, and with the grabber I'll shake out if there's any food left. Normally there's not. But I won't pick up like banana peels and orange rinds and stuff like that because they'll break down by nature. The plastic, the hard plastic, bits of metal, even the paper. The paper can is organic and technically will break down. And by the way, when I say organic, I mean containing carbon. I'm not talking that it was home sourced and I grew up in I did my paper mill and did all this in my backyard and I made the containers for McDonald's or somebody like that. No, I'm talking about food that contain organic containing carbon. So I make sure I don't pick up any of that. There was a candy bar I picked up this week, and it had some ants on it, but I shook it off, and it was a big chunk. So it was a chunk like this, still inside the wrapper itself. So I decided, judgment call, and I said I'll get it. So I used the grabber, and I cleaned the grabber later on that day after I finished. So I will wear gloves when I pick out the trash to put in the artistic style that I do for the everyday post, and I will wash my hands before, double wash my hands afterwards, up to the forearm to make sure that I didn't get any weird things that may have come off the trash when I was using the grabber. And then finally, the first rule that I do to make sure that I'm not invading anybody's property is I will stay on what is considered city property. For example, I will stay on the sidewalk. I will pick up trash that's on the grass that's between the sidewalk and the street, because that is still that is considered city property, even though you may consider that part of your home property. It's not. It's actually city property. And then I will pick up anything in the street that I can within reason. If it's like, I think there was a fender bender 2 weeks ago, and I didn't pick up any of the quarter panels that were left on the street. I just don't have the ability to do that, to get it back to my house, to get it into a trash can. City streets. I won't go onto company grounds, which includes churches and stuff like that. They have maintenance teams that could pick up the trash if they want to. And so I feel that they already have somebody looking out for them. I'm just looking out for the rest of us who need to have some have someone out here who's just picking up trash. So I want to also thank a nice young lady that I ran across yesterday who told me that she is actually letting her kids know. She's an educator, which more power to all the educators out there. That she tells them that there is a man that roams, her words, man that roams the neighborhoods that pick up trash, and that they should pick up trash just like he does, because then they're keeping their area nice. So I thought that was nice, and that's great to hear. And I hope the kids do learn from that and will continue to pick up after themselves. So, and then as far as how far reaching does the man in the hat go to pick up trash? As far as I can walk in a reasonable amount of time. I usually don't have a lot of time, so I will walk 30 minutes out from my house, and then I'll walk right on back. Sometimes the 30 minutes is taken up by picking up a lot of trash. Not always, but I mean, I'll get at least 20 minutes of walking in one direction and then 20 minutes back. Most of the time, I'm going out and back, out and back. Some days I will do like a circle. It just depends on where I'm going. So I think next week I'll show a map of that. I don't feel it necessary to drive anywhere to pick up trash because there's plenty of trash in my neighborhood. Even though I'm picking up trash every day, and I know there's people out there like myself that are also picking up trash, and thank you for that. It's just not happening enough so that I walk and there's no trash. There's always trash. So it's sad and unfortunate, but that's how human nature goes for the most part. We're not every human, so let's not get into into grouping there. That's not good. But there are enough individuals out there throwing trash out the windows, or coming off of the back of their trucks because they're not picking up their truck, flat in the beds, cleaning up the beds of their trucks. That I have plenty to pick up every week. So if I ever get to the point where I don't have anything to ever pick up and I can go a week without picking up anything, maybe I'll drive somewhere else. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go. We're going to have some serious topics to talk about in Bottom Line, and then we're going to have some fun time at the breweries with Brother Rob. So let's go into the Zen moment for the week. Here's your Zen moment. Okay, so there you go. Our Zen moment for the week. And by the way, that music was Feet on the Water, Unexpected Moment. So, Unexpected Moment by Feet on the Water. I thought it was appropriate for the images that we had. Jay Anderson, by the way, put that together, and next week he will have a new poem for us. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, so now that we've calmed ourselves, we've centered ourselves, we're all good. Now to get ourselves riled up again with a new bottom line. Here's a bottom line that kind of ties in, or definitely ties into what we talked about a couple weeks ago, which was the quiet quitting episode of Bottom Line that talked a little bit about. Well, you know what? I'll have it in the bottom line. So let's just go straight out to the bottom line. Hi, welcome to the bottom line. So this is where the more serious parts of the show. For those of you who are new, once again, welcome to the show, where I bring up different topics. So and I discuss them. Discussion usually means more than one person. So I'm still trying to. If somebody would like to come on and we can discuss topics, we can certainly do that. But right now it's more just me throwing it out into the ether and seeing what comments I get back from individuals. So regardless of all that, so a couple weeks ago I talked about the quiet quitting. Those which was it's a relatively new term for those people that say they are only going to put in their 40 hours and then they're going to go home. For most of us, and most of us of a certain age, and most of us who, well, let's just say for most of us, in my opinion, and of course I did get some difference of opinions, it's called doing your job. You put in your 40 and you go home. I have never really come across a direct managerial comment saying that I had to work late. I have come across managers that said when there's emergencies or when we are doing something as far as a release or something along those lines, you may have to work late every now and then, but it's nothing that is expected to be done all the time. So not sure if people understand the meaning of what it means to do their job. And I get it. There's managers out there that will expect you to work plus 40, sometimes 50 hours a week, but they don't necessarily tell you that. Now, one of the things that we take away from that is that you do get paid. So if you're not getting paid for the extra time, then that's an issue that you need to bring up with your HR department or with your manager, that sort of thing. And if you are only going to work the 40 hours, then that is something that you can also discuss with your manager. So the fact that people are calling it quiet quitting by just simply doing their 40-hour-a-week job and not working more, a lot of us don't get it. That's just called doing your job. And people and then I also said, you can certainly do that, but there may be repercussions. And if you're willing to accept those repercussions, then there's absolutely no problem. Like if you are not promoted and someone underneath you who's worked less time but works more hours gets promoted because managers like to see that. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a thing. Then by all means stay and do it. If you are happy where you are and you work your 40 hours so you can have a life outside of work, go for it. I see no problem with that. Just remember that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and that may be the case. So if you start asking yourself, why am I not moving forward with the company, could be that as well. We also tied that into about working from home full time versus hybrid versus working in the office all the time. This was not for our people out there that work jobs that are outside of an office. Those people have always had to go into wherever they work, not work from home, and they've had to work that time all the time. So we being the lucky people that have an opportunity to work in an office and not outside and not in someone else's home, are able to. We had that discussion, so we talked about that. So now, a continuing of that, I guess my part 3 in the series. I don't know how else to call it. Now I'm beginning to see articles and discussions around cost of living crisis. So I talked about the other two, the working from home versus all the time versus a hybrid work dynamic versus working from an office all the time. And then I talked about quiet quitting, where people are only putting in their 40 hours and then logging off. So now the discussion is now centering around something called the cost of living crisis. So originally, you could say the quiet quitting may be considered a crisis, even though not as many people are doing it as the article was kind of leading people to believe, because it's not all over the place. So there's either people are doing it and they're not letting other people know, but then that just means they're doing their job. So I'd love to see productivity numbers on that and see if it's actually hurting. Because sometimes, people say they put in 50, 60 hours, but then they're doing, running errands, or they're playing on Facebook, or they're playing on this book, and they're playing on Instagram, and they're playing on Datagram. And so technically the grand sum is they're still putting in 40 hours, sometimes less. And so are they really, putting in the 50 hours like they're making it sound like? Chances are probably no, but I'm sure there's some people out there. I definitely know there's people out there that are putting in 50 plus hours and they're working their fingers to the bone as far as you can in an office. But still, I digress. So what's the issue that we're seeing now, and it's not as prevalent as the newspapers or as the media puts out there. Cost of living crisis. So now the problem comes in, from my understanding of the articles I've read so far this week about it, is that now people are having to go back to an office, either full-time or part-time, and those that got jobs during COVID that were working from home may have taken a pay cut or a little bit less for some other reason, so a pay cut overall in general, that now that they're having to go back to the office, are realizing that pay cut really hurt them. So they may have taken a pay cut because it was the only jobs that were available for them at the time, and a lot of people were struggling trying to interview, and a lot of companies were struggling to interview via Zoom and other type of web chats, because they couldn't get the direct feel for an individual, so they weren't sure how it was going to work out. And so they took advantages, companies did, by perhaps paying less. Not all companies, but a few. And then some people were in a crisis of, I don't have a job. It's way more difficult now to find a job when I can't just go and, knock on doors, so to speak. So now that they're having to go back into the office, they realize that the cost of living, which actually the cost of working, is beginning to be more than they thought. Good example. I have a friend of mine that lives in California, and they took a job that was, and this isn't in one of the big cities, this is in the smaller cities, but still, was a 2.5 hour commute one way, but they got a job working from home during the pandemic, and they didn't have to travel. So they took the job because they're like, well, it's a job, I like it, and I don't have to commute. It doesn't pay as much as I want, but I don't have to commute. So I'm saving all this money. And here's the kicker. Their understanding was more than likely, they wouldn't have to go work in an office. Now, it was never implied by the company. It was never directly said by the company, we're not going to ever go back to an office setting. They just took it that they would never have to work in an office again. And therein lies the rub. So they got the job. And they worked it for about a year. And they loved it. and they were making great money. And part of the reason was no gas, no maintenance on your car, no paying for parking, no paying for eating out. No, none of the things that are considered an everyday thing when you go to an office. So, fast forward a year and a half later, the company is now, hey, we're all going back to the office. So it's not even it's not even a hybrid work thing. It's a full-time job in the office. So originally, my friend did not have a job where he had to travel more than 30 minutes to his job. When he took this job, he thought he was, oh, I'll never have to work in an office again. Lo and behold, the reality has come back with full force, not just for him, but for a lot of other people. And the company's like, you need to come into the office. So now you're not between, and he likes to think he's between a rock and a hard place. He's not. You took the job. You didn't get direct writing that he didn't get direct writing that they would never go back to an office. He liked the money he was getting because he was saving a lot more money by not having to commute and all the other expenses that I talked about. So, and he really likes the job. And he's not getting the raise because they're going back in the office. And I'll talk about that in a second. So, now, during that time, him and his wife downsized to one car because it saved on car payments. So then they were saving money there too. Now he has an upcoming 2.5-hour commute, and one way. So it's going to be a 5-hour day for him, and with the wear and tear. And by the way, a 5-hour commute is at least the tank of gas, if not more. It could be upwards of closer to 2, depending on your vehicle and your miles per gallon. You're going to have to either take a lunch or do something. You're going to have to leave. I'm not sure what time he starts work, but say he starts work at 9, like a lot of people do, to get there by 9, which means he would have to leave his house by 6:30 if he wants to get there at 9. He's going to have to pay for parking. So leaving at 6:30, which means when he leaves at 5 p.m., he won't get home till 7:30-ish. So he's really having to rethink everything. He's beginning to get into a place of panic because they gave them 30 days to make the transition. So he starts tomorrow, driving. I think he's going to try twice a week. Driving into the office, 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours home. He's looking into seeing if he can take a transit or something like that, or carpool with maybe people that may work with him or work in the same area where he lives, or where he works, I should say, and they live nearby and they can carpool. And so he's looking into a lot of things because he really loves his job, but he may not be able to keep that job. So now we're seeing the crisis of what happens when you work from home from a long period of time and now you're having to go back. So it really depends on the individual. So if were thinking that you were going to work from home forever, then it's back to what I was saying in the other bottom lines, which were then find that job. Find that job where you can work from home. If you can find a job where you can work from home the rest of your life until you retire, by all means do it. I'm not opposed to it. I know most people would not be opposed to it either. They'd love to work at home for the rest of their life, of their career, and then retire and then still be at home. That would be fantastic for everyone, but that's not always the case. Your job may not be available all the time at home. You may still have to go to an office. So maybe he can find a job that's a hybrid where he only has to go in a couple days a week. He's hoping that after they start going in full time, they may change it. But what he's also doing is he's realizing he may have to freshen up that resume and see if he can find a job where he can work from home. or at least a hybrid of some sort, or a job where he has to go into the office, but it's closer to where he lives. And so the crisis is now on the employee's side, not the employer's side. The employer doesn't have to give you any additional incentives to come back to work. They really don't. If you worked in the office before and then you were home because of the pandemic and now you got to go back in the office after, the company doesn't have to give you additional incentives. A lot of companies will, because they don't want to have that turnover, and then they have to look for more individuals again to start up, which is always a productivity hit when it comes to employers. But they really don't have to, and you don't have to take the job either. We've discussed this before. You don't have to. If you don't like going into the office, don't go in. You won't have a job, and then you'll have to look for a job, but that's, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So you have to think about it to yourself and to your family, what's best for you. So and back to another aspect of this is that the crisis is also, a lot of people took jobs during the pandemic that paid a little bit less, and didn't have any additional benefits that some companies will give, like additional paid parking and stuff like that. And so they worked the job because they were at home, and now they're realizing that it doesn't pay well enough to go into the office. And like my friend, they want to stay at their job, but if they can't afford to, like if having to pay, fill up twice a day almost in order to get to your job. An average cost right now can be anywhere from $20 to $100 depending on your vehicle. That is a huge expense that we went from nothing to a huge expense, and will take a cut out of anybody's wallet. I don't care how much you make. Well, the rest of those that have chauffeurs and their own drivers, we're not talking about. And if you have electric vehicle, that might still be good too, but 2.5 hours, 2 hours, you may have to stop somewhere and charge. And how long does it charge? And how much time do you have to make for that? It really depends on the electric vehicle you have, and I don't know much about them, so I can't give you definitive numbers. So now the crisis becomes, it's coming full circle. There's got to be other items that come up too. So the bottom line is this: if you can afford to continue the job that you like to do, do it. If you have to go to work, to an office, you might have to rebudget. You're definitely going to have to rebudget, because it's an expense that you didn't think you had anymore. If you don't think you can do it, then you might want to start freshening up your resume so that you can look for something that may help you out. So it's not really a crisis if you can do it in the short term and figure out what you're going to do in the long term. And that's the bottom line. Hey everyone, I hope you like that bottom line. It's not controversial, but it will raise a lot of discussion. So I'd like to hear from everybody who has a comment or thought, and let me know what's going on. So I looked at my editing software to see how much time I had left, if I can get in all the fantasticness that Brother Rob and I did out at the breweries, and it turns out the answer is no. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the first two reviews of beers that we had at Celis Brewery. So this is Celis Brewery off of 183, back in the industrial complex area, and then about a mile and a bit down the road was Austin Beer Works. So this is going to be part one, and I will get the rest of it out there. Sorry, Brother Rob, I got a little on my soapbox a little bit for the bottom line. Ran out of time, so I want to show part one though, because I do need to have a little bit about the spirits. So Brother Rob and I went out yesterday to Celis Brewery, like I said, and Austin Beer Works. Celis Brewery, it turns out, was doing some stuff for Oktoberfest. Austin Beer Works was not, but Austin Beer Works is always a crazy place anyway, so they're always packed, so I don't think they needed to do anything additional. So it turns out Celis Brewery has two sections to it, and we hit the first section, which was almost empty. And so we were like, what's going on? This is Oktoberfest thing, and it's almost empty. Turns out there's another section, another building almost, that's not even connected to it, but it's right there. And when we were leaving, we found it, and we were like, "What? Oh, this is what they're talking about." Well, unfortunately, we didn't stay, and I think the beer reviews may show you what we were talking about. So I'm just going to go the first two, and then I promise everyone that I will have the rest next week. So here's the first two beer reviews. We got flights, by the way, so I hope everybody knows what a flight is. The first two beer reviews from Celis Brewery. Here we go. All right, so Rob's here. We're here at Celis Brewery. We're having some flights. Rob, what's your first one?
First one is a Ho Daddy.
Ho Daddy.
Yep.
Ho Daddy is 9%, I think.
Yes. Interesting. It's good.
1 to 10, what do you got?
That's a solid 7 or 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ho Daddy.
Let me try it now.
Remember what kind it is?
That is nice. I'm gonna give that one a 6. 6 for me. So that was Daddy. Okay, so we're still at Celis. So this is my white. I can't remember the whole name of it, but it's white. 4.1% ABV. Oh, this is a wit beer.
Yeah.
So, not bad, but I'm going to give it a 5.
Yeah, I'll give it a 5 also.
All right, there you go.
He's pretty bad.
Okay, so there you have it. I still see that ring. Yeah, I know. My mom will bring it up. So, there you have it. First two of the flights, a flight of 4. We wound up both getting the same one at the end there. But so we'll have 7 beers that we'll talk about. First two here today. So if you're interested, and that's the show, by the way. Thank you. I'd like to welcome again people who are just found the show. Welcome. I hope you will continue to watch Javier in the Air. And for everybody else, thank you for watching. If you have a business, a mom and pop business that you'd like to get on the air and be interviewed by me, by all means, let's do it. We can either have you here out on the patio, or I can do it via Zoom, and we can do that and talk a little bit about your business. If it's local, I can even go out to your business and we can interview at your establishment. So if you would like to be on the show, you have something you want to talk about, everything but politics and religion, except those two, and you want to get on and talk about it, let's go for it. We'll talk about it. I will talk about anything, as people have told me. If you have an event that you'd like to promote on here, promote. They're not going to pay me. This is still free. I do this for free, everyone, so I don't get pulled off of different websites. I'm not getting paid for this yet. Maybe I will one day. Right now, no. And so I will be bringing on Crazy Stacy. He's been on multiple times. We're going to talk about a Be a Light Craft Fair next month. I'm sorry, in 2 months, in November. We're still in September this week. And we will talk about that. And so if you want to get on, you want to co-host the show one time, by all means, I'm looking for someone to do that as well. I think that'll be great. So we can certainly do that. So sit back, enjoy the rest of your week. If you have to commute, hang in there. It is worth it. If you have topics that you'd like to hear on the bottom line, let me know. So have a good week. I will see you again next week, and you'll get to hear the rest of the beer and some more great stuff. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good day.